Hello there, my name is Mr. Wishart, and today I'm going to try to guide you through one of the subjects that many people really struggle with in terms of Irish history. It's why was Ireland, the island of Ireland, partitioned or divided in the 1920s? There were a number of reasons behind this, and a lot of students really struggle with this. Just a bit of recap here from the last video. By 1916, then Ireland had Home Rule passed. Home Rule was an Irish Parliament in Dublin to deal with Irish affairs, but it wasn't complete independence. It is passed, but it had been stalled by the First World War. Nationalists, those who wanted Home Rule for Ireland, actually fought on the British side. It's very strange, but they fought on the British side. They really hoped that this would encourage them to pass Home Rule at the end of that war. Unionists, on the other hand, fought for Britain because they really hoped at the end of the war that the British would not introduce Home Rule for Ulster especially. That's going to end up with a lot of troubles then after the war. There's one group of people, however, who believed that Home Rule just did not go far enough. They were Republicans, and they were called the IRB, the Irish Republican Brotherhood. They were determined that Ireland should break free completely from Britain, not a halfway house, not Home Rule, but complete independence. And they were determined to try to achieve this here through violence if necessary. 1916 is going to be a crucial year for the IRB. They're going to try to actually make this move for complete independence for the whole island of Ireland. So the rising actually began because they really felt 1916 was the time to do it. They believed that England's difficulty was Ireland's opportunity. That's England's difficulty was Ireland's opportunity. The difficulty they're talking about there is the First World War. The British Empire, which is hugely powerful, had been involved in, by this stage, 2 really cruel, punishing years of war across the world, and that was having economic, social, political and military effects. This could be the time to rise up. So the IRB puts plans in motion for an Easter Rising in 1916. Easter time because of Christ rising. It's the same sort of symbolism for the Republicans. However, the rising didn't get off to a good start. First of all, the arms that they needed to get smuggled in didn't arrive, or got captured, actually got intercepted by the British as they were making their way from Germany. This led to a lot of confusion in Republican ranks. A lot of people thought the rising was called off. They didn't show up. The other thing is, though, that they decided to go for it and to try to make a go of this symbolically in Dublin. A lot of them knew it was going to be a failure. The rebels seized key buildings, including the GPO, the General Post Office, right in the middle of Sackville Street, as it was then, O'Connell Street now, and things like the Jacob Cracker Factory as well. However, they were quickly surrounded by the British, and after 1 week's severe fighting, in which Dublin was decimated, they had to surrender. Dubliners absolutely booed them. You have to get this right, that they really didn't like what had happened. A lot of their people were fighting abroad, and Dublin was destroyed. However, one thing changed attitudes completely, and that was the British decision, General Maxwell's decision, to execute these rebels in quite quick succession. These included key people like Patrick Pearse and James Connolly, who were quite reasonably famous after this rising. So they were getting executed one by one, and this was leaking out to the press and causing people to completely turn against the British. Altogether, 16 leaders were executed, but the British arrested over 3,500 people, and they had 90 people on death row at one point. So for people of Ireland, they really did turn against the British at this point, and what had been what had been like hostility towards the rebels changed. So that public opinion completely changed from one of hostility to making them into like martyrs and political heroes. One political party in particular really did well out of all this here. That was Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin didn't really have very much to do with the rising whatsoever. However, it was called the Sinn Féin Rising by the press, and this stuck, and this really helped the party support Snowball as it got associated with the Easter Rising. This really came to fruition, a little bit to do with conscription and their opposition to it as well, but it came to fruition in the 1918 general election, which Sinn Féin won 73 out of 105 seats in the Irish Parliament. They really used this mandate from the people to introduce 2 key things. They declared independence and set up their own parliament at Dáil Éireann in Dublin. They also set up the IRA, this time Irish Republican Army, and that was the fight for independence, because Britain they were prepared to fight for home rule, but they were not prepared to accept independence for Ireland. That would be quite a step too far for them. So they were prepared to actually go and fight to keep Ireland semi-independent. So this broke out into an obvious war of Irish independence. This war was particularly brutal. It started off as skirmishes where the IRA would raid police stations and take guns. Then it ended up in the British and Irish police, the RIC, getting killed by the IRA in ambushes. And the IRA would really try and destabilise the country and take away the police. The British, in response, brought in the Black and Tans, quite a large and brutal military force, or semi-military force, who a lot of them had fought in the First World War and were quite brutalised by that experience. This led to atrocities on both sides, and the IRA executed 14 members of this Cairo gang who were operating in Dublin, and in response to that that afternoon the British smashed into Croke Park, the GAA stadium, where a match was taking place, and they shot dead up to I think it's about 14 supporters and a player in that match. Obviously things were getting out of control here, lots of people were dying, and the Prime Minister at the time, British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, had to come up with a solution. He knew the IRA could not really be beaten. The IRA itself was really suffering from lack of arms and was struggling as well at this stage, so Lloyd George came up with a solution that was to divide or partition Ireland. He knew the Unionists in the north would not accept home rule, so he's going to partition Ireland, give them 6 counties in the north, making it Northern Ireland, and he's going to give 26 counties in the south to what was going to be called the Irish Free State, not the Irish Republic. This was going to be an independent. This was not going to be independence. It was going to be like a halfway house. So it was going to have an Irish Parliament, but they were going to declare allegiance to the British King or Queen, and it was going to let Westminster make some decisions as well. In the north, in Northern Ireland, they were given its own parliament, the Stormont, and they were allowed to rule the 6 counties in the north. Politically then they thought this was it, Ireland was sorted, the dreary steeples of Fermanagh and Tyrone were gone, but obviously this stuck up a lot of problems for later on. 35% of the Northern Ireland population was a minority Catholic population ruled by Protestants, and this would lead to troubles later on in the 1960s. I really hope this helps. It's quite a difficult subject, but if you look over it, you can actually really work out exactly how Ireland was divided into 2. Best of luck.